It's true. I think over time we're gonna see more and more people figuring out what we see. I think we're gonna see more and more people realize that this thing is being battle tested, and it's gonna keep getting battle tested until we figure out the perfect solution. And I don't think that that's ever gonna happen. I think there's where we're going to continue to try looking for better solutions. All I know is that let's say 10, 15, 20 years from now, it'll be better than it is today.
Mm.
There will be more L2 solutions. Who knows? Maybe the dollar is going to be even better, maybe even bigger than what it is today. I still think that the dollar's demise is coming a lot sooner than people think. I
Mm.
think, I mean, for all we know, Bitcoin could be $1 million by December 2024. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but for all we know, it could happen, right? It could be at $1 million by the end of December 2025. It could also be at $10,000 by the end of 2025. I think the most important thing here, though, is just understanding where this could possibly go based on what we know, based on all the facts that we have. I agree with you. I think that uh, working with having money with fiat currencies is a great thing, but I also think that the fact that Bitcoin can be moved around is a benefit and it makes a society much more equal. It gives everybody the ability to accumulate assets because right now, let's say if you borrow against your real estate, if you buy a house and then you uh, live in it for a bit and then you build some equity instead of having to sell it, you want to buy a car, you can just borrow against the equity. The problem with that I have is you can delay gratification and you can get instant gratification at the same time.
Mm.
And that's a problem to me because whoever's getting the instant gratification is, of course, enjoying their life, but then they're also able to delay gratification and they're able to use somebody else to pay for their expenses. What do you think of that?
Yeah, that's a good point. Now the first thing I want to say is that I don't think Bitcoin going to $1 million is that crazy. So for anybody
No.
who listened to what you just said and said, "Hey, December 24 or $1 million, what are you nuts? That's a couple months from now." Or December
Yeah.
2025, that's a year from now. Look, during the COVID crisis, Bitcoin crashed to $3,000. It went 20x to $60,000 on the back of lowering interest rates and quantitative easing. We are now moving into another period of time of lowering interest rates and what will soon be in order to keep those interest rates low while the government has to issue more debt to finance their deficit spending. Remember, the more debt they issue, the more upward pressure there is on yields. So they have to have a quantitative easing program to buy the debt in order to keep the yields down. So we are going into that same regimen, lower interest rates and quantitative easing. That pushed us 20x from 3,000 to 60,000. Well, roughly we're at 50,000 right now. And on the back of those same policies, declining interest rates and eventually quantitative easing, if we do the same move of 20x, 50,000 times 20x is a $1 million Bitcoin. So it's the same mathematical measured, 3,000 to 60,000 doesn't seem like it, but it is the same mathematical move from 50,000 to a million. So yeah, I think that's you're spot on. People need to realize this thing can move a lot faster than anybody is anticipating. Now, the second thing that stuck out is you said that maybe the dollar becomes stronger. And see, as an American, I don't want to see the dollar die. Like I hate the dollar. I keep my rifle in the car. I'm ready to go. Let's get back to the constitutional republic of the United States of America. Don't get me wrong. People who follow me understand I am a Bitcoin maxi. Bitcoin is the only money in the world, but there's also money is a tool and currency is a tool and they both play their role. And I'd rather see the dollar dominate than the yuan or the ruble or any other fiat currency. And I think what may happen here is we might see that come to fruition. The dollar is struggling now because we see these other countries are pivoting. We see BRICS fighting against it with their gold backed currency, with that they haven't really announced. We don't really know all the details on that. I'm very interested to see when they finally announce that what it is, because as far as I'm concerned, they could be adopting Bitcoin for all we know. But
Yeah.
they say one thing and then they do another thing. We know that's what countries and politicians do. So I'm not necessarily convinced that it's a fully gold backed currency. But if it is, I think they made the wrong choice, which is actually a blessing in disguise to us here because we can adopt Bitcoin. And if we adopt Bitcoin as an asset on our balance sheet and we're issuing dollar liabilities against that asset, now we're right back into that positive feedback loop. So now the rest of the people in the world are going to say, screw BRICS, forget the ruble, forget the yuan. I don't want any of that shit. I want the dollar. And we see that in a lot of countries right now. Stable coins, are really a way for people to get safety relative to their home fiat currency, right? Because the dollar is always called the cleanest shirt and the dirty laundry, right? So we could actually see the demand, even though the demand for dollars are slowly dwindling now because of the government deficits and the massive inflation that's taking place. If the right decisions are made and the government adopts Bitcoin strategy, the demand for the dollar could shoot through the roof. And then when the demand for the dollar shoots through the roof, when the dollar gets too strong, that actually enables us to print more dollars. That
Yeah.
is a benefit of being the global reserve currency. That when the economy is, that's where the 2% inflation target comes from. Like, how's that a stable target? It doesn't make any sense. Well, because the idea is that the global economy is growing at a rate of 2%. And if we don't meet that growth, the dollar will become too strong, which creates a bunch of problems in the currency markets. So there's that dilemma where we have to, at some point, you have to dilute because of the strength of our economy and the strength of our dollar and the demand for those dollars because of all the dollar denominated debts within the system. So I think, I would take the opposite of that and say, hey, I think you're onto something here. I think that we can actually see the demand for the dollar go through the roof as all these other fiat currencies start to fail. Because as
Yeah.
bad as the United States is, these other countries are worse. As corrupt as the United States is, these other countries are more corrupt. So there's very few. I mean, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, these are beautiful places with great tax incentives and smart people leading the way, but they just don't have what we have. And
Yeah.
and we have first market mover advantage, and that's the reason they call it first market mover advantage. It's almost impossible to take. So unless we just turn our backs on Bitcoin and completely ignore Bitcoin, then yeah, I do believe the dollar is destined to be end up on the street
Yeah.
and worthless. But if we adopt Bitcoin, we might see what you say, where the dollar sees a whole bunch of new demand and all these other fiat currencies tail off. And that requires more dollar printing, which actually drives more value into Bitcoin, which is now on the asset side of our balance sheet. And all of a sudden, a country that was $300 trillion in debt is now equity rich, is now net positive in the amount of trillions because of the strategy that we employed. So we are at
Yeah.
such an important turning point in all of finance that we really need to. Some people say that, Bitcoin isn't political. I think we need to get more political now than we've ever been. I think I can't wait for people like you and me when we are eligible to start running for these positions and to start helping and to get a voter base already. Crypto. So we need to fix that, right? Not crypto. We need a Bitcoin party, not a crypto party. And I love that it's crypto for Harris instead of Bitcoin for Harris. That tells you
Yeah.
everything you need to know, right?
Yeah.
So we need a Bitcoin for America party, and we need to get our shit together, and we need to adopt Bitcoin, and we need to start integrating Bitcoin into our economic strategies. And if we do that, the demand for dollars is going to go up, not down. And that's going to ensure that we are making some of the most important decisions that are going to be made for all humanity, including Musk's mission and other missions for sustainability. Bitcoin is true sustainability, right? We've been talking a lot about the finance side of this, but I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on Bitcoin mining and the importance that mining plays in the grid and in true sustainability?